So what do we look for in our metabolic Kraft test, the first out of lab assessment of insulin resistance? The first measure that we want to identify is our fasting measure. Is that normal or not? We measure glucose and insulin together and we check these fasting measures. Then we'll ask you to drink 75 grams of glucose. And then after 30 minutes, we will do what is called our first postprandial assessment. It's looking at how much glucose has risen and also insulin. This is the first look to see how hard insulin is having to work to manage a glucose load. Our next measurement is at the hour mark. And on a traditional oral glucose tolerance test measured at 2 hours, we've actually found alongside research that's been done in previous years that the hour mark can be quite telling in someone's glucose tolerance and is the first marker of dysfunction. At this point, we are measuring insulin against the glucose response. So glucose can still be normal, but insulin at this point can be very, very high, above our threshold, and therefore we are identifying the insulin resistance that is prevalent in the client. We then got our 1.5 hour mark. Again, looking at, is insulin continually rising? Or are we starting to see insulin starting to come back down? Then our 2 hour, our 2.5 hour and 3 hour mark, have we seen insulin continue to rise? Or are we seeing insulin starting to fall and becoming back to baseline? Certainly within 3 hours that we expect that to be normal if it hasn't peaked above our threshold before then. So these are the patterns that we start to identify with our Kraft assessment, is the peak that it gets to after the fasting measure, that being the fasting measure has been normal, and then we are looking at where that peak has happened. Is it quite late in our timings? And how long does it take to come back down to baseline? So is it beyond the 3 hour mark that it takes to return back to normal?